It's ready to roll over. Microphone, no microphone.
Microphone.
Okay. People have spoken.
Get your face into it, yeah.
Like this?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. And I thought tweeting was stressful. The first thing I wanted to do is to thank everyone who came out tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of unfamiliar faces, and both of those things made me really happy. And I also wanted to thank Eagle Harbor for hosting this great event and making this possible. And I wanted to thank Bon Bon, which Bon Bon Candy across the street, which donated the great fudge tidbits back there. And I wanted to thank both of my publishers, Love Swept and Harlequin, for the books and gift bags that they donated tonight. So my name is Serena Bell, and I write contemporary romance. And I'm going to talk about why I write romance, which is actually a 3-hour talk. But because I grew up outside of New York and then lived outside of Boston for almost 20 years, I can do it in 5 minutes. So the reason I write romance, the reason I write is the same reason that I think a lot of writers write, which is that they have a compulsion and they can't help it. I actually am the daughter of someone with this problem. My mother's a novelist, and she always told me that if I could find anything to do besides writing, that I should. And I totally failed to take her advice, clearly. She gave me my first notebook. Despite this piece of advice, she gave me my first notebook when I was about 6 years old, and I started writing stories. And very soon after that, those stories became love stories. By the time I was 8 or 9, that's all I wrote. And they were very long love stories. They went on, and they filled notebook after notebook, and they never ended. And that was something that was a habit I had to break when I became published. But my stories, I think even then, were about two people who are lost in the world, feel broken in the world, feel alienated in the world, don't know who they are, don't know where they want to be, but when they find each other, the pieces come together for them, and they're found. They're found. They find each other, they find themselves, they find their place in the world. And those are still the stories that I like to write best. Those are still the stories that I write now. I love writing love stories because a love story is a thread you can catch onto, and you can build the whole rest of a person's world around it. You can see what made them who they are, and how they got alienated in the world, how they got dissociated from the people around them, what happened to them in their childhood, what they need, and who they're going to become. And the love story is, for me, a great means of taking that trip with someone. And I love meeting new people. And so for me, it's just a pleasure to be able to do that all the time through my work, even if they are imaginary. I read my first romance when I was 12 or 13, and I told my mom I want to write romance when I grow up. And she said, and I'm fairly sure this is an exact quote, "No, you don't." She said it would be too formulaic, that I wouldn't find an outlet for my creativity in it. And so I set it aside for a lot of years. I kept writing my love stories, but I set aside the idea of being a romance writer. I became a journalist. I actually stopped reading romance. Eventually I stopped writing love stories in college because around me in college, the people who were encouraging my writing were encouraging a different kind of writing. And that went on for a long time, that I was a journalist and I wasn't really writing love stories anymore, but I never kind of completely felt like I was fully happy in the world. Something that my husband can attest to, because he sometimes had to listen to me say, like, I don't know, I just have this feeling I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I said it a lot. And then I read Diana Gabaldon's Outlander. I read it because my daughter's first grade teacher kept saying, you have to read this book, you have to read this book. And I kept saying to myself, but I don't read that kind of book. But I did, and what I discovered was what I rediscovered was my love of reading. Because for a long time, I had felt like I'd rather watch TV than read a book. You know, I'd rather be with these characters who have things happening to them all the time and feel like my friends who I can see every week. But when I read Outlander, I was like, oh yeah, this is like the books I used to read when I was a kid. So I started reading a lot of romance, and I remember one moment really clearly, sitting in the car, listening to Suzanne Brockman's The Unsung Hero, and I started talking out loud to the characters, like, you go girl, yeah, that's right, you do that. And I realized, like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to write books that make people feel this way. So, I did. I wrote my first novel in 4 months, and I'm about to make a really long story short. It was rejected by 90 agents. I wrote another novel, which actually never left the house, and then a third one. And that novel was the novel that finally got representation from an agent and sold. And that novel is also what I'm going to read to you from. The book is called Still So Hot, and it's my first book that's out in paperback, which has been a real thrill. Except I don't know where my pages